balance is interesting because when you're nishta, then you become fixed. I guess fixed, kanishta is your up and down, and nishta is your steady. So I guess steadiness is something that you would achieve when you were balanced. It would be a side benefit, wouldn't it? That you would become reliable. You would keep your commitments. Um, you would have a better way of seeing things because you were free now from impurities that would normally cloud your vision. So real balance would come with steadiness, I would have thought.
Mm. How do we like find that balance? Because for me, it's something I'm trying to like discover. You know, like Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that one who's not balanced in their recreation, their eating, their sleeping,
Yeah.
he can't mitigate the pangs of material existence. So I'm trying to
Well,
like.
because you can't become a Majjhima Adhikari overnight, so you accept that part of the course is that you go up and down. And they say that whatever you measure improves. So if you're kind of keeping a journal of yourself, you're checking in every couple of days where you're at, how things are going, what's your progress. That's helping you to kind of navigate and say, okay, things have been going good for a couple of weeks. And I can expect around this time I'm going to go in a nosedive for 2 or 3 days. So it's not going to be a shock for me. And you just learn to compensate for your lack of steadiness by measuring things and keeping an account. And then you'll see a pattern. Maybe it's every week, and it starts becoming every 10 days, and it becomes every 2 weeks. Then you get hit very hard once a month, and the time you are affected starts to reduce as well. So that will encourage you, whereas you wouldn't know that if you weren't measuring. Then 1 minute everything seems okay, the next minute everything doesn't seem okay, and then it does seem okay.
Sounds like the difference between being like proactive and reactive basically is like in material life we tend to just like, oh, something's happening to me, kind of react. The spiritual life, we
Yeah.
become more conscious of the cycles of life kind of thing that we're going through constantly.
Yeah, proactive would be you would find what it was that was knocking you off your balance and become more aware of that. There may be a particular attachment that you have. I remember I was on Sankirtan and I couldn't do it. I couldn't go up that morning. I was on traveling Sankirtan with Krishna Chaitanya. We were in a transit van. It was full of books and we were sleeping on top of the books. And we got up that morning. We used a little camper gas stove to cook our breakfast. And I said, I can't face it. I can't go out. And I didn't want to tell him what it was. But what it was, I just got this terrible feeling that I wasn't going to be able to have toast for the rest of my life, because at that time bread was bogus. Nobody touched bread in those days. It was really fanatical. So no bread meant no toast. And I used to be really attached to toast, and I hadn't had toast maybe for about 2 years. And suddenly the daunting prospect of having no toast for the rest of my life was overwhelming. So I stayed back and cleaned. I phoned up the Sankirtan leader. I didn't tell him it was because of toast. I just said I couldn't face it. And he says, well, clean the van and then see if you feel like it in the afternoon, which I did, and I was fine. So that's when your anarthas are coming up, the unwanted things, then you can really feel like, oh, I don't think I can give this up, So that can create an imbalance.
Yeah, I feel like it can be very distracting for the mind, like it's like you lose perspective of the important things, and you get really caught up on your own problems, which aren't even really problems in the end.
No, self-obsessed. So and the whole idea of going out and doing Sankirtan is to shift the focus off yourself onto other people, because okay, maybe you're not Rupa Goswami II, and maybe you do have a lot of attachments, and you have disqualification in that one. But compared to 99.9% of the people that you're going to approach today, you're doing a hell of a lot better,
Yeah, I wonder what is it that allows us to shift that, because sometimes it gets to a point where you're just suffering so much that you have to call out, and then usually
Yeah.
that will help. But is there like a more intelligent way to make that shift?
Well, if your service is Sankirtan, then that's great because you'll get to deal with it just in due course. If your service isn't Sankirtan, you're doing office work or pujari work, then you maybe have to look at how you can get out for at least an hour or two, once a week, once a month, and just blow away the cobwebs, just look at the bigger picture, just see, there is 14 planetary systems out there and there's 8,400,000 species of life. And most people haven't got a clue what's going on. So just go and share what you think is meager wisdom with others, and that will give you such a huge lift. You'll be able to chant better the next day. You'll be able to appreciate the great fortune you have to associate with devotees, how rare and special devotees are. And you really see that when you meet people who are just conditioned and leading meaningless lives. You think, wow. And you can't wait to get back to the temple and associate with people that speak the same language,
And that's one thing I think. When you're on Sankirtan, you are repeating the basics a lot, and it can be because it can be quite easy to get into like the esoteric stuff, read some of Shiv Ramaraj's books, and get carried away with that high level stuff. But sometimes we just need to hear the basics. So like when you're out on Sankirtan, you are hearing the basics a lot, and
Yeah.
it's quite helpful to keep drilling that stuff in too.
And also, you may not be saying anything. You may be on Harinam, or you may be just you may feel very timid, and so you just buy 20 books and you're just going to give them to people for free, and you don't really say very much. Just, here's a book for you. We're giving them away today. And so you may not say very much at all, but when you go to chant the next day, the holy name's pleased and he's dancing on your tongue. So that's one factor to take into account, is that your Krishna consciousness is there by the mercy of the holy name. How are we going to get the mercy of the holy name? By giving it out, by giving the holy name out. Every time you give somebody a book, it's telling them to chant Hare Krishna. So you're not speaking the philosophy. Of course, if you're doing that as well, that's why devotees advocate straight books, because then you're forced to have to preach on the book and encourage people to take it. So that can be very enlivening. That can also be a little self-indulgent as well, is that you're doing it that way because that's helpful for you. But it may be that if you hit them for a donation and give them the book afterwards, you can get more books out. Anyway, that's another subject.
But that was this past week. I went on traveling to Sankirtan, and I was, because I've been kind of getting into the morning program a lot more and kind of developing this relationship with Gauranga here in the temple, the deities. So I was kind of feeling like, I kind of miss Gauranga, like I want to be in front of them and see them.
You've got your new deities?
Not our new ones, just the ones that we've got already.
Oh yeah.
But I was kind of missing being in the temple. But then I started doing a bit of Sankirtan, and then I had this. It was exactly the same feeling that you get when you're in front of our specific Gauranga in the temple, and it felt like I was in the temple room, but I was on the street. It was very it's quite mystical, but
that's it. That's exactly what it is. I remember one time I was traveling and I'd made a special effort. I was going to really try and push and do well on books, and when I came back, I saw Radha Gokunalanda, and Radharani seemed to be really, really pleased. Really, really kind of rewarding me with some nice darshan, and it was like getting a glimpse into the spiritual world. It was so nice. I thought, oh, that's how it works. You go, and it's the same when you go to the Holy Dham. You go and the Dham reciprocates because you've been spreading the holy name or doing devotional service very nicely, and so the Dham wants to show some mercy, some special appreciation.
Yes, it is amazing. The Sankirtan's a special thing,
Yeah, it is. It's you're getting a chance as well. You see, we are most of us Kanishtas, and when you go on Sankirtan, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, you get a glimpse of what a Majjhima Adhikari experiences, and his perception of things. You're able to see that's a devotee, that's just an innocent person, that's a total demon. and there's Krishna making an arrangement here. You know, Krishna's in the background. You see all these things. You're just by doing the austerity, the yogya, you get this special insight, and then when you step back and you don't do it, then you come back down onto the Kanishta Adhikari platform, and then you're annoyed about small things, and your little world becomes petty again, and then you step back out, and boom, there you go. You're straight back up into this high level of consciousness, you know, because Krishna wants to use you, and he won't be able to use you if you're total Kanishta. So he's going to have to shift you into a higher level of consciousness, so that you can behave in a way which enables him to empower you and distribute the mercy through you.
Mm. And I guess we've also have to have our sadhana as well. Like we have to sharpen ourselves, keep ourselves sharp too, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how
Oh,
do you go on?
7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And then I think you brought out another book called Eighth Habit. And the Eighth Habit was sharpening the saw. So even if you are successful, it's not that you can just rely on that, because just by the process of existing in the material world, you become blunt again. So you have to proactively keep sharpening yourself. Don't rest on your laurels.
Mm. I wonder because, like, for me, when I was first trying to practice sadhana, like, my first year in Krishna consciousness, like, extremely strict with the sadhana, but it wasn't like balanced. It was very unbalanced. So I was pulling myself so tight that eventually I'd snap and like go the other way completely, you know. But I wonder how do you be strict but not be rigid? Like how do you?
Well, you have to learn by your mistakes, and self-realization is interesting because it always reminds me, you know, like when I go swimming, I like to dive in, and if you don't know the swimming pool, and you're not quite sure when you dive in, I try and swim as far as I can underwater. So you don't really know maybe you have a rough idea from the last time that you can go this far, but maybe you could just go this little bit further if the pool's a bit bigger than normal. So you hyperventilate a bit, you jump in, you go under, and then you're swimming, and then you find out how far you can go. So Krishna consciousness is like that. A lot of the time we don't really know how long we're going to be able to stay celibate. So we jump in there and we say, okay, well, I'm holding my breath. That's been 2 years now. Oops, I'm starting to go a bit cross-eyed. I need to come up for some breathing. And I tried this Sankirtan. I tried going on a marathon. It was good. We did a marathon once. It must have been 3 months, and it was okay at first, but then after a while, it wasn't. You cannot stay on a marathon. I think marathons really 2 weeks you can go all out. Maybe spend the first 2 weeks just building up, and then suddenly you just go all out. You know, but I think after 2 weeks, so at least for me anyway. So you self-realization is you start finding how long can I do this for? What are my limitations? And what are things I'm going to have to work on? Okay, that's as far as I can go with this right now. I'm going to have to take a step back and read more and chant more. So that's it. So I'm finding out now what my limitations are, you know. I can't compare myself to somebody else because somebody else may be a lot less conditioned or more conditioned, and therefore they can't do as much. So if I'm hanging around with him, I'm thinking I'm doing great. But if I'm hanging around him, I think I'm doing terrible. So neither of them are really an indication. The best thing is to just compete with yourself and just become aware of what your limitations are and how you're going to improve gradually to eventually come to a higher level, you know.
I'm wondering because that sounds important to focus on yourself, but where's the line between that and kind of a type of self-obsession? Like my sadhana is really important, and I'm focusing on myself, you know, despite everyone else. Do you know?
Yeah, self-obsession is usually you become preoccupied with yourself, with concern of yourself, but not yourself as the potential pure devotee that you are, but yourself as your preconceived idea of what you think you're capable of doing. That's why marathons are so good, because you break free from all these preconceived ideas of I can only collect 200, I can only go for 10 hours, I can only and need at least 3 meals a day. These are all your preconceived ideas of what you think you're capable of, and then suddenly you're breaking through all these barriers. My God, I've gone 24 hours book distribution. I didn't know I could do that. Oh, I've collected £1,000. Didn't know I could do that. I've done this. Didn't know I could do that. All these things you suddenly find that you can do. So self-obsession. It's probably more like self-distraction, that you become distracted by this preconceived idea of what you think you're capable of, and it's not allowing you. Like Shiva Ramanuja, one time he was doing these podcasts, and he did this one, "Don't Get in the Way." That was like the theme of the marathon podcast. So getting in the way is you push your false ego in there, and instead of thinking about Krishna and you, the soul, you've got this kind of limited conception of who you are and what you think you can do.
So this is like a conception that you've kind of concocted in your own mind, basically.
Yeah, you may have like a comfort zone, and if all the fact, I mean, it's so reactive really, because the comfort zone is, I'm okay as long as this happens, that happens, as long as I can do Sankirtan here, as long as it's this type of Sankirtan, as long as this person smiles at me, as long as this person's nice. It's like there's so many conditions there, and then everything's fine. But that's like, when you're reactive, then you're very vulnerable to the environment. As soon as the environment changes in any way, any fluctuation, and all the toys come out the pram, oh, no, I'm not doing this because. So proactive is you have a set of principles that you want to abide by, and you'll do that irrespective of what the mind or the senses are telling you.
And I guess you need a bit of flexibility in that way, like based on the external situations, you have to be able to flex with what's coming at you, the data, this, okay, maybe I can't do this particular thing because of the situation I'm in, but that's okay. I'm just going to try my best with what I've got. That type of.
Yeah, and something may happen, and you just don't know what just happened there. There's a breakdown. It's like, what happened there? I've lost my enthusiasm. I've lost my confidence. I'm feeling full of fear. Okay, what's happening here? I need to process this. What's Krishna trying to tell me here? What did I do wrong? Sometimes I've experienced, you can be given this class, it's like a really fired up class. Oh yeah, you need to really go for it. Just go for it. Just give everything, And then you're out there on Sankirtan, and you suddenly realize that you're being tested now because you've said this, and now you've got to walk the talk. If you hadn't have been so puffed up, putting it forward as if, you've totally got this worked out and you're completely fired up about Sankirtan. And now, like, Southern Christians saying, okay, well, let's see, are you really what you're saying, So then you realize, oops, don't put yourself forward, because if you do, you'll get tested by Krishna and you may not be able to come up with the goods. So you have to kind of backtrack. Wow, I'm in a situation now where I'm not feeling connected. Where did I disconnect? What did I do wrong? What do I need to realign,
When you find that thing that's causing you to be disconnected, sometimes it's like a habit that you've a bad habit that you've formed, like almost like a weed that's grown, and it's quite hard to like stop that habit. Like, is there a way you can just like,
Well, it's very simple, isn't it? If you do devotional service, chant 16 rounds, and follow 4 regular principles, then you're going back. But you may need to situate yourself at a place on the ship where you're being less exposed, where you're more protected. You'll need to work out, how am I going to continue doing these 16 rounds, these 4 principles in this devotional service? What will I need to do? I know I need to do those things. What is jeopardizing me from doing them? What is coming in now to the into the arena of my consciousness, which is threatening me to be able to follow those principles? I'm committed to wanting to following them, but this obstacle that's coming up now is jeopardizing my faith, my ability to put that into practice. So we want to make it as easy as we possibly can for ourselves, but sometimes the way to make it easier is to do something which is more difficult. So we have to look at that. Okay, what is threatening my enthusiasm? to practice Krishna consciousness. If I have that, if I'm enthusiastic to practice Krishna consciousness, it's interesting, isn't it? Krishna says, in this endeavor, there is no loss of diminution. He doesn't say, in this result, there is no loss of diminution. He doesn't say, I guarantee you'll do a huge score every day on Sankirtan, and you'll have great success in this or that or the next thing. He doesn't say that. He just says, in this endeavor, there's no loss of diminution. So he's asking you, you just make the endeavor, you just be enthusiastic, and then whatever happens, happens. And that's really all you can control. That's the only thing which is that you have the ability to determine whether you are going to be enthusiastic or whether you're not.
Yeah. I noticed on that theme of like asking yourself what is getting in the way of my Krishna consciousness. I've personally experienced that as soon as you ask that, Krishna makes it quite clear. Like it pops up like, oh yeah, this is the problem. It's like, like he will inspire you to find that problem, that weed, and it's not like you're just on your own, basically.
Well, there's a dialogue going on all the time, and the dialogue, the deities are speaking to us, the holy name is speaking to us, and the books are speaking to us. And sometimes we're aware of that, and sometimes we're not. But guaranteed, if you can remain patient, you're afforded this wonderful opulence, which is hindsight. And generally, hindsight is very, very clear. But to gain the opulence of hindsight, you have to have determination and tolerance. Because if you're not, then you won't have that experience to be able to have the hindsight to reflect back on why it went like that.
Yeah, we just have to keep trying our best to follow.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, keep pushing on. Keep going. Keep on keeping on. I heard that once. Keep on keeping on.
And like this instruction from Krishna to be balanced in your eating and your sleeping, and to get that kind of regulation. Like, how do you think this is like an extremely important principle, or is it sometimes overstressed sometimes by some devotees, the importance of regulation? I'm just wondering, like.
Yeah, well, a lot of the time I think what it is in Krishna consciousness, we're getting Sambandha, but we have to translate it into our language, because what it's really saying is we need to be in the mode of goodness, but it doesn't sound like that. I mean, we all accept that we should go into the mode of goodness. We all know that passion and ignorance is not going to be, it's going to be problematic, and we need to get into the mode of goodness, but we don't realize really, that doesn't translate into how we would implement that in our own lifestyles and the environment that we live in. What is that? How does the mode of goodness come in? Because then when the mode of goodness comes in, then we get balanced, then we're more knowledgeable, then we're happy in our situation, and then we're more kind of proactive in our practice of Krishna consciousness. But and then we'll be getting instructions which are telling us to do that, but we translate that as something else. We don't realize. So the challenge is, can we assimilate the Sambandha into Abhidheya? Can we take all the parts that Krishna is giving us, and can we construct something which is useful, which is going to be effective for us? Can we do that, or do all the parts remain split up and disconnected, and we're not sure how that fits in with this, and what are we supposed to do with that? We heard this, and it sounds good, but what do you do with that? How does that fit in with this?
Does this come from the same trial and error thing, or is it come from like good association, or like this kind of view?
It can come from trial and error. It can come from association. As you continue on in Krishna consciousness, you make mistakes and you wise up. They say that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So generally, that's the way it goes, And as you go on and you keep making the wrong decisions, you start gaining experience and you start realizing the next time it happens, you think, well, definitely don't do that because that definitely doesn't work. And if you do it that way, then obviously it's going to be more austere. The school of hard knocks is more austere. But for a lot of us, we just have to resign ourselves to the fact that it's probably going to be the school of hard knocks for me, because I'm not that bright. Maybe if I'd been a devotee in my last life and I'd done a lot of devotional service and I was very close, I wouldn't have to go through the school of hard knocks so much. But generally, for most of us, better to be in no illusion about that's probably how we're going to get enlightened, by getting knocked on the head a few times, and then we wise up. Okay, that was really sore. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, one I guess benefit as well from the School of Hard Knocks is that when you get experience, it means that you can help people that are going through the same thing in the future because
Yeah,
you've got a real
yeah,
realization on it from having fallen over in the same exact way, and
yeah,
you can give encouragement. So that's one nice thing.
yeah. And it's funny. You can become an inconvenient truth.
Yeah,
That's the problem. Also, is that sometimes young devotees don't want to hear your wealth of experience and knowledge. They're quite happy to go. They're actually enjoying the school of hard knocks. They don't realize that what they're doing is they're slowing themselves down by going through the school of hard knocks, and by you saying, "Look, don't do this, don't do that." The next thing, they're thinking, "Oh no, he's spoiling my fun now. I enjoyed it." So then you have to, you know what's coming, and you know they're going to get the knocks, and you just have to think, okay, well, let me just have a nice relationship with them, so that when they do get hit on the head, maybe then they'll come, and I can say. But if you try to tell somebody something before they want to hear it, then they don't actually really hear it. It sounds to them more like a threat or something, or a trauma, being traumatized. That's what I've learned. And you have to look in Krishna consciousness and think, sometimes, do I want to sacrifice the relationship for being right? Or do I want to sacrifice being right for the relationship? And quite often you're going to have to sacrifice being right for the relationship. Spiritual masters are really put into that awkward situation. That there was one, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada wrote to him and said, "I'm giving up my wife, and I found this other woman, and I want to marry her. Do I have your permission?" And Srila Prabhupada said to the servant, "Tell him, yes, you have my permission." So the servant said, "Well, why are you saying that, Prabhupada? Because I know that you're so against somebody doing that." And Prabhupada said, "Because if I don't, he'll do it anyway. And if he does it anyway, even though I've told him not to, that'll be even worse. So better that I just say it's okay." So you think being a guru is going to be great? You just tell everybody what to do, and then if they don't, tough luck. But it's worse than that, because you've taken responsibility for somebody. So you have to compensate for their inability to hear what you've got to tell them. And you're just like waiting compassionately for them to wise up and learn themselves.
I guess not that I have experience, but I guess parenting is probably something like that too. Like usually, if your parents tell you not to do something, you do it anyway. That kind of thing, right?
I'll tell you a story, right? But when I tell you the story, you'll never want to have kids. So if you want to have kids, put your fingers in your ears, and the others that want to hear the podcast can hear it. So how old was I? I must have been in my 40s, and there's a white witch that I go and see every year as I'm going around doing the businesses, and she's one of these kind of really savvy people. She's really got things worked out. So I said to her, "I'm thinking of starting a family. I've left getting married till quite late, and my wife and I are both in our 40s now. What do you think?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "You've worked hard all your life doing this. Now, these last few years, you should enjoy yourself." She said, I've had kids. She had 3 kids, and she said, "The thing about kids is you think the kid is going to be like you." And she said, "They're not. They're completely, it's just like bringing a stranger into your house. They're completely different. They've got their own opinions, their own ideas about things, completely different than what you would expect. You're so shocked to see how different they are to you." And she said, But at the same time, every time something goes wrong with that kid, it'll be like a knife going through your heart. And it just really scared me. I thought, wow, it's like having an extra limb put onto your body, and you can't move the limb the way you want it to. But every time that limb gets hit, you feel the pain. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know whether I'm really up for that, you know? So it was like, okay. So we decided, okay, we won't have kids. I mean, it was a selfish decision in one sense, because having kids does purify you and frees you from a lot of selfishness, you know? So you can either do it by just doing service for 20 years or bringing kids, or one way or the other. Krishna will teach you, you know.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Just going back to the idea of balance as well, and the school of hard knocks. When you were speaking, I was thinking about, you know, like learning how to ride a bike. Like at first, you're really not balanced at all.
Yeah.
But like the more you try and the more you fall over, eventually you can just ride it and you don't even have to think about it.
Well, what's interesting about a bike is, and it's the last thing you want to do, it's so counterintuitive. When you're on the bike, because you don't feel safe, the last thing you want to do is pedal fast. I remember when I was learning to play to use the ride a bike, and I was thinking, I'm never going to get this together, because every time I was trying to do it, I was just falling over, you know. And then someone grabbed the back seat of the bike and started running with it. And I was thinking, no, don't do that. But once I built up the momentum, it was dead easy. I thought, wow, this is easy. Once you're moving, it's really easy. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing about being balanced, is if you make an intense endeavor, you have that faith, I'm just going to do this. It seems pretty freaky, but I'm going to do it. And if you can maintain that intense endeavor, then the balance will be easy to keep. But the problem why we find it difficult to keep the balance is because we slow down. Mm. And when you slow down, you're all over the place, because you can't pull against the material energy so easily. Whereas if you really, I've seen that so much during because on Sankirtan you don't know so much, because everyone's forced to just have to approach people and keep going. It's so obvious if you don't do that, you're going to get hammered. So you do that. But what I noticed during the pandemic when I stayed back was I was rubbing shoulders with people that hadn't really done Sankirtan or had the training. One had been he practiced Krishna consciousness outside, and he just did it at his own pace whenever he wanted. And suddenly here he was, everybody breathing down his neck. And any chance he got when nobody was looking at him, he was doing it in the most spaced out way, like really lackadaisically, just didn't want to do it. He was lying down on the side. We called him Mahavishnu, because he was always in this Mahavishnu pose, you know, lying like that. If he's getting massaged by Lakshmi Devi or something, and just using one hand to do the weeding or whatever it was he was doing, with the minimal amount of endeavor. And if you're doing it like that, it's like they say, you're cruising for a bruising, you know. If you slacken off to that degree, you're not going to get the protection you need to have the material energy held off from attacking you, you know. And it's going to be so tough for you to keep balance like that. You just keep going down with the mode of ignorance all the time.
Nice. That's quite an inspiring way to end the podcast as well. So like kind of pedal faster, move quicker, and then the balance, you'll gain balance quicker also.
Yeah, it'll be easier to navigate, to deal with things. Of course, the other problem is if you're going to pedal faster, then you'll need to look further ahead, because things will come at you faster as well. So you'll need to be able to develop the ability to survey the landscape, the territory, and see things coming and learn how to steer clear of them, you know. Otherwise, just pedaling faster, you could keep hitting walls head first all the time. So you need to do that as well. Develop that sambandha and be able to survey the environment and say, okay, watch out for this, watch out for that. You know. Okay. Hari Bolo. Madhurya